welcome to this webinar series for Africa. Our focus for this webinar is implications of the 17th World Conference on Tobacco Health for Africa. We have two speakers, sorry. One speaker has got some family issues and is not going to be around, that's Dr. Jim. So we have two speakers. We have Dr. Flavia Senkubuke, who is also the president for the World Conference on Tobacco Health. Flavia, you're most welcome. We have Dr. Prasad Vinayak from WHO Geneva. Dr. Prasad, you're most welcome to help us articulate the implications of the World Conference for Africa. So the webinar is going to last 1 hour approximately, and we're going to have about 25 minutes of Q&A, question and answer. We're going to have Dr. Flavia, Dr. Vinayak open the discussion, and then later on we'll hear from Dr. Flavia. Then we wind up with Dr. Vinayak, and then we go into a Q&A. You're most welcome. Mark Paraskandra, are you online? So we have Mark, who is supposed to give us opening remarks, but I think because of the time difference, he will join us later. So I'll have Mark give us some words of wisdom later on when he joins the call. So Dr. Vinayak, kindly take on the floor. Dr. Vinayak? Dr. Vinayak, are you there? Let me try to connect to Dr. Vinayak quickly
Kellen, I'm finally in. Tell me.
Hello, Dr. Vinayak?
Yes, I'm online now.
Okay, thank you so much. Kindly take on the floor.
Okay, so thank you. Is Flavia speaking now? No.
I think I'm after you. Yes.
Okay, so thank you, colleagues, for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the World Health Organization on the importance of the World Conference on Tobacco Health. WHO has been the technical co-sponsor for WCTOH for more than 10 years now. As part of this role, WHO works with the conference secretariat organizers to develop a robust scientific program where we bring in the topical issues of concern in the world of tobacco control. And we've done this successfully in the last Abu Dhabi World Conference, the one before hosted by the government of Singapore, and then even before in the Mumbai conference. And for this current World Conference as well, WHO has worked with the conference secretariat and the organizing committee to bring in a very robust program From our perspective, the World Conference brings out the ability for the various stakeholders, and this is very important. I'm emphasizing this because WHO traditionally works with governments, and over the last couple of years, World Conferences, the focus has moved into engaging more and more of governments, because its initial World Conferences were largely focused on the science, looking at the academic world and a lot of civil society effort. But now we see more and more government participation as well in the recent World Conferences. And that to us is critical, because no amount of science and no amount of advocacy will work if we don't have the relevant people to as well listen in. It also becomes an opportunity for the different stakeholders to engage. So for this World Conference, we have the Director General of WHO, Dr. Tedros, who will join the Honorable Minister of South Africa for the opening plenary, and the Ministerial Forum, which happens all on the 7th of March. But the DG also will use the opportunity to engage with a number of ministers of health who are coming for the conference, to discuss areas of progress and areas where there's been less progress in tobacco control. We see the World Conference as an excellent opportunity to identify areas where there could be quick wins. And therefore, if you would see, WHO is leading on 8 sessions. 3 of them are focused specifically on tobacco taxation, because we believe that's a win. But progress has been mixed and very slow. And so we would want to the profile of tobacco economics and taxation. Another area of interest is the challenges coming from the tobacco industry, where they are reinventing themselves and making the pitch for a reduced risk product, the so-called reduced risk products. The Philharmonic IQOS, the British American Tobacco's Glow, JTI Plume Tech. So all of these products, WHO's position has been that these we do not know that they are less risky. So we would want the government to continue to treat them as any other tobacco products. And so we have a couple of sessions there on these issues, and we see the need for bringing interested groups for a very strong debate on how this, because this is what will impact. Look at the theme of the World Conference, the tobacco-free generation, and creating a united world. All of these efforts by the industry is basically trying to weaken the process of progress, which has happened with the convention, the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, where we now have 181 parties. And a new treaty is coming into force as part of the CTCA, which is the illicit trade protocol. So industry is facing the heat from the FCTC and the protocol, and they will want to reinvent themselves. And we see the World Conference as an excellent opportunity for discussion on how you could unmask the efforts of the industry, how you could create a cohesive understanding of how to counter the effort of the industry. They put in $1 billion, for example, in the Foundation for a Smoke-Free World, which is basically a front group looking to give incorrect advice to governments, looking to fund researchers on many of these new areas of work, reduced risk products, and looking at alternative livelihood and all of that. Very attractive topics, and the academic world and the researchers need to be aware. How will they be aware? These are the opportunities. We see the World Conference make those opportunities in the when we meet in Cape Town. Let me stop here, because this is, I believe, would be allowing us for some more interaction. So I'll stop here, hand over back to Kellen. Kellen, Flavia.
Thank you, Dr. Benayak. Yes, thank you, Dr. Benayak, for the insightful intro to the World Conference. Can we have Flavia?
Good afternoon, colleagues. It's a real privilege for me to actually be having this conversation with you this afternoon. In South Africa. And I firstly want to say thank you very, very much to the Center for Tobacco Control for this invitation. The World Conference on Tobacco Health, that is being held in Cape Town, is being held at this point in time. I think I have to frame it in a kind of a broad agenda. So one of the key global agendas is the Sustainable Development Goals, which we are having, all of us, to answer to, and really bringing in a lens, a health lens that is really seeking us all to not only just be scientists and to, in our own spaces, advocate for health, but really to bring in a broad health lens of the health conversation, all the way ranging from issues around policy, the epidemiology, right all the way up to implementation. The conference is also happening at a time in the African region where we are having a conversation around the Agenda 2063, and one of the key elements that are coming out of that is the issues around development and having a space for collaborative action for the African developmental agenda. Of course, we can't forget that the background as well, not just only in Africa, but I think globally, there's a more galvanized women's voice and the youth voice that is coming to the forefront. And I think these are key things to remember as we hold the conference in Africa. The World Conference happening in Cape Town is really the first time in the history of the conference that you have two countries, Uganda and South Africa, bidding for a conference and winning. And I also don't want to leave out, because I can see the colleagues from Kenya online as well, who have been integral in the organization of this conference. I think one of the things that this particular conference is really bringing up a number of firsts that are happening in terms of the tobacco control agenda. I think first of all is that we're bringing together what I call a broad church of voices, and we're not only having your traditional scientists and government workers, but the youth voice is at the front and center through the theme of uniting the world for a tobacco-free generation. And I think one of the things that is coming out quite strongly is the notion of self-determination, which is one of the key value principles of our country, South Africa. And so you will see, for instance, the scientists and together with the government, academics, and the common man will also be attending this particular conference. One of this, in terms of the science, we have had a broad agenda that really, in most of the papers, you will see that they are quite integrated. And yes, there is a tobacco lens, but there is a lot of looking at, stepping back and saying, now that we are working on tobacco control issues, who else do we have to extend our hand to? In terms of colleagues from the HIV and AIDS group, you will see sessions around TB and tobacco control as well. The workshops are quite diverse. One of the exciting workshops is the pre-conference workshop on the 5th that will be a youth conference which will be attended by, and one of the keynote speakers is our minister, our deputy Minister of Health, Dr. Joe Patler, who will be a part of it. I have a feeling that it probably is one of the first times that the Youth Pre-Conference has headlining as one of its speakers, a deputy minister. And again, this talks to the self-determination and the recognition of different voices coming on and different narratives being part of the traditional narrative. The implications for Africa are quite varying. On the slides that are there, we have listed a number of things, but I think one of the things that Africa will be benefiting from is a taking forward and our intrinsic philosophical discussion was that now that this conference has happened here, what are we gaining from it, not just during the 3 days of the conference, but really post-conference. And so one of the things that has been quite key is an articulation of legacy. And one of the legacy activities that are going on during the conference is the training of our top 9 youth leaders on the tobacco-free generation concepts, and then post-conference having a broad agenda for a local voice through the mayor's meeting, CTCA, and in collaboration with the National Department of Health of South Africa, and the various universities will be hosting a meeting of all the mayors in Africa. And again, it's a first to get them to endorse tobacco-free cities through their Healthy Cities campaign and agenda. The other implications, of course, for Africa are the fact that because this is the first time that this conference is happening, particularly for South Africa, it's a push towards speeding up the implementation of some of the recommendations that are there in our law and the various reports and the science that has happened as well. And also, we will be having a record number of 9 ministers from the Africa region attending the meeting. And again, through the generous contribution of the WHO, there will be a push again with these particular ministers to put to push the tobacco control agenda. One of the things that excites me as well is that during the conference on the 8th of March is, again, it's the first time that we are actually the conference happening during the International Women's Day, and we're having an all-women panel. And again, it's hearing, a woman's voice by and calling on the agenda of women in tobacco to be put and to be mainstreamed in the various policies. And I think that, so for us as Africa, we are excited about hearing about the new science. We're excited about collaborating and meeting new friends and doing and working hand in hand with the different colleagues who will be on at the conference. But I think most importantly, we are very excited about creating a legacy and a generation of children who won't be affected by tobacco use. Thank you very much, Kelly.
Thank you, Flavia, so much for, again, another insightful presentation for us to chew on and think through why we are attending the conference. Dr. Mark is online. Dr. Mark, do you want to say something to us? And then we'll move into a Q&A. Dr. Mark?
Microphone. There it is. Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to unmute myself on the software. Yeah, so no, just that we're excited to be participating in the World Conference. You know, NCI is also one of the co-sponsors of the conference, and we'll have a few of our staff there, and we're participating in a number of sessions. We'll also have a table there with some information about our monographs and other resources, and we're really excited to see this conference happening in Africa for the first time. We have been supporting some research in Africa for a number of years, and so I think it'll be exciting to see, and hopefully this will really be a platform to help also build research capacity in the region as well. That'll help for tobacco control. So thank you. That's that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Dr. Benayak, do you want to give us any additional implications that you think are critical for us to take home today?
So thank you for the opportunity to speak again. So for all those who are listening in, and for those who aren't, but we can convey, we've always found the World Conference to provide the opportunity to look at the successes and challenges, but to follow through that. I mean, there's an opportunity where we would want to see more successes in the African context, or in the context of many of the other developing economies. And with so many experts in one building, I think we should create that opportunity, and I'm hoping to do that. I mean, I asked one person who's attended more than 8 World Conferences. It's quite anecdotal, and he said, I don't go to the World Conference to listen, because we know the science, we know all of that. I go and meet people. So that's my advice to all those who are listening in. Meet people.
Simply
put,
people. Thank you so much, Dr. Benayak. That's a great message. Meet people. So colleagues, let's go to meet people. I am looking forward to meeting all of you and many more people. So the floor is now open to the Q&A. Just unmute yourself and then go ahead and ask your question. But also give us a brief intro, your name and the country. Thank you very much.
And so this is Mark again. Can I add one additional comment? Which was just to say that we're very interested in doing what we can to collaborate with others to build research capacity in Africa. And one of the things we're going to be doing at the World Conference is sharing a survey to try and do what we call a network analysis of research in tobacco control in Africa. And so we'll be handing that out at the conference and hoping we can get people to fill it out. And the information will be, will be shared only in aggregate form. So it's meant to be anonymous, but the idea is to find out where are the major connections, the major institutions, and that sort of thing in Africa that are active in tobacco control, and perhaps where there are some gaps where we could focus on building activity and capacity. So I hope folks will be willing to participate in that.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Colleagues, you've had, this is to support us in Africa to do a network analysis, but also later on that will be merged with a research agenda for Africa on tobacco control. So it's a very important activity. Kindly fill the form, but also on the 6th, there is a session on tobacco control research for Africa. Please fill in the online link to register for that program, and that program again is in partnership with SRNT, CTCA, NIH, WHO. So let us all join in and learn. There's a lot more to get from that workshop. It's on the 6th, and it is a full day workshop. Thank you. The floor is open. Kindly unmute. Give us your name and country, and then your question or comment. Thank you.
Peter Yuko, Johannesburg, South Africa. May I proceed?
Peter, go ahead. You're most welcome.
Thank you. I was delighted to hear Dr. Benayak talk about the shift that has taken place, more from pure science to getting governments involved. And what I think he referred to as the ordinary person. And as Flavia just said, the youth. That for me is going to be the big shift. I mean, Mark is referring to more science, and that has to go on. We have to have solid science from the real world to counter the tobacco industry. But we also have to have the capacity of the youth to go and fight in the future. When you and I are sitting at the fireside talking about what we used to do in tobacco control, we have to have the youth fighting the fight that we're fighting now with energy, with passion, with knowledge from the science, and with a commitment to go forward. So that for me is the most exciting part. I'm glad I'm involved with the tobacco-free generation move in South Africa, and I'm sure that it's going to go and grow. But the slight shift in the focus of the conference of involving other people and the legacy of which Flavia spoke is very exciting. I think that when we all meet, as you've already suggested, we're going to make sparks fly. We're going to make fireworks.
I love that. Thank you, Peter. Colleagues, go ahead and ask your questions or make your comments.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, Lutgard, go ahead.
How are you, everybody? Talking about the youth, this is very important. But then some of us want to be having youths attending. And I'm wondering as to what the plans are after the conference to make sure that this fire that's going to be lit at the conference is spread over to all of us and that it keeps burning. Any concrete plans to ensure that, because that is extremely important. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Lutgard. Let's have another question or comment, then we can have our speakers respond. Okay, in the meantime, Dr. Benayak and Flavia, do you want to respond?
Yeah, so maybe I can give some comments here. So the concept of legacy has been there in many global conferences, including in the Olympics. So IOC, for example, creates a small investment and works towards the legacy post-Olympics. So I would believe it's an opportunity here to see how we could engage first with the government of South Africa and the community in South Africa to create that movement. Because rightly said, we need to move in the world of tobacco similar to what the world of HIV/AIDS did a couple of years, with more of a citizens movement or a community, more of a connected world. Unlike in tobacco, where the research is on one end, policy process is on another, ultimately it's all about changing behavior. And with 80% of the world not consuming tobacco, that's what it is, just 20%. It's almost like the gun movement in the US, where this little group wants their gun and the rest of them are quiet. So the rest of the 80% need to make that noise and create a demand, because the politicians need to listen. They need to know that the youth does not want to be exposed to smoke. They want to be protected. So I think that's what the message should be, whether in the youth movement, whether in the advocacy, whether in the press event, whether engaging with the politicians. So I stop here.
So, Kellen, maybe I can add to what Benayak has said. Can I go ahead?
Go ahead, Flavia.
I absolutely couldn't agree more with Benayak, and I think an articulation like that from WHO is absolutely exciting. because I think as public health specialists and public health professionals and people who are working in the field, this is one of the things that we have called upon. And there are quite a number of people who wear quite multiple hats in terms of the fact that they are scientists, they are advocates, they work with students and that, but they are very few. And I think one of the big calls for this conference will definitely be breaking down the silos and also making sure that the science that is produced doesn't only go into journals, but really filters down into tangible gains for communities. I wanted to answer Ludgard's question in terms of the fire that will be lit during the, particularly with regards to the youth. And this is one of the things that is very exciting, as Vinayak said about the issues around legacy, that is done quite well, incidentally, in the sporting fraternity. And the reason why legacies work so well in the sporting fraternity, and the reason why people bid, is so that they can get this fund that is there. And I'm not sure, Kellen, whether in terms of the tobacco control, the WCTOH conferences we've had this particular fund that will ensure that countries that host have a, have a fund where they can have a springboard for legacy activities. But having said that, the CTCA, the National Department of Health, University of Pretoria, and University of Cape Town has funded the pre-conference legacy activities about capacitating youth leaders around South Africa. Africa, we've got 2 people from Nigeria, we've got some youth who are from Kenya, who will be attending a training that is offered by the colleagues from Singapore on the 3rd. And then they will be going and implementing what they have learned at the back of the conference, right through from the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. The reason why CTCA is spearheading this particular program is because the program is going to be housed in the CTCA. That's why the colleagues of CTCA are part of that program. And they will then train additional youth members across the Africa region. I think this is what is so exciting, Ludgard. So the fire that's being lit there, the CTCA will carry the torch for Africa. And incidentally, when we finish in South Africa, we'll already have 9 youths across the country who have been trained, and they will then become the tobacco control champions. And together with the other youths from and the additional 8 African countries, and they together with the CTCA will actually be tasked with ensuring that voice of TFG and that light doesn't die out. Thank you very much, Kelly.
Thank you, Flavia. Thank you, Dr. Vinayak. Any other questions? We can also use the chat to type in our comments and questions. So our colleagues, continue with the Q&A, unmute and ask your question or make your comment. Thank you. Yes, Flavia, you asked a question whether the WCTOH Secretariat has got a fund. In the 2 years we've worked with them, we've not had any statements like there's a fund. But what I know is that usually if they have an excess of the collection of the registration fees, then they would always have something that they return or give back to the hosting country or the local organizing committee. That's what I got to know at the beginning. Thank you.
Hello again. Hello.
Go ahead, Ludgard. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Ludgard, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm still concerned about this youth, you know. Can you how can I put it? Make a deliberate attempt or a special request for a special fund for the youth I mean, to ensure that this thing continues and spreads. Because like for Tanzania, we did train champions in the past. We had a youth wing which had died. And I really would be happy to see this coming up again. Can you think about working towards establishing a special fund to ensure that this legacy continues and is sustained? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Lutgard. That has been noted, and good enough, Flavia is the president for the World Conference, and Dr. Benayak has also said they've been sponsoring for 10 years. So I think we have the right people in the house, and we will definitely take the message further on that request. There is another question through the chat. They're asking how the media is engaged with the World Conference on Tobacco or Health. I'm sure the media in Africa. Flavia, do you want to take on that? Because there's a lot of work that has been going on with the media.
Thank you very much, Helen. So actually, in this particular conference, that's the other exciting bit of it, that the Secretariat created a fund, and we incidentally are going to have 43 media colleagues from the Africa region who will be attending media training at the conference, but also additionally covering the conference. And these are only just the ones from Africa. We also additionally have a number of colleagues who will be coming from the international sector, like BBC, CNN, Sky News, and so on and so forth. And from last week, we have been having media drives in South Africa and across the radio stations in the region and also globally. Thank you, Kellen.
Thank you, Flavia. Dr. Benayak, is WHO doing anything with the media on the conference at global level?
No, so we have a couple of opportunities there. DG will, of course, join the Honorable Minister of South Africa for the media briefing on 7th in the morning, just before the opening plenary. That's 8:15 to 9 o'clock. And then on the 9th of March, we are doing a meeting with a breakfast with the journalists, with our ADG, Dr. Svetlana, along with Douglas and me, and we've invited William Mina as well, so we'll get the African story. The idea behind doing that is to have a little more informal discussion with the journalists. So if there are journalists who would want to come, I mean, the official announcement and all of that will happen. But if there are any specific interests, we could definitely, get to engage more during that. I would. It's not a press conference. It's more of an engagement with the press.
Yes. Interesting, Dr. Benayak. Maybe you could have some civil society, because when you say your team and Dr. Mina, that's basically WHO. Can we add in some civil society and maybe the academia as well?
As you can always come as a journalist.
Okay. Okay. There's another question or comment. ATCA is organizing a media training on the 6th of March for 20 African journalists. So that's another engagement during the conference, and a great one. ATCA, I've seen Leon on. Could you kindly say something on how that training, what would be like the end of that training? Are they going to do something for us for the conference, or take stories back at home and so on? Can you kindly give us a brief?
Thank you, Kellen. Hello, everyone. So
Leon,
is organized. Yeah. Hello. Hello.
Go ahead, please.
Go ahead, Leon. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thanks. Okay. So I was saying that we organizing this. I mean, the African Tobacco Control Alliance is organizing this training with the union and CTFK. We are planning this, having 20 journalists from all the regions, having from West Africa, Southern, Eastern, and Central Africa. So these journalists, they will attend the training on the CIS, but also they will be in Cape Town to give a coverage to the events. So on the CIS, we are having a media brief with the union to engage them, to help them know the sessions and how they can get involved in the events and give coverage during and after the World Health Conference. So that is what we are doing. But for us, we think that before engaging them in the coverage of the event is worthwhile to get them, imbibed in the conference and also on the key tobacco control issues on the continents. That's why we are organizing that training on the CIS. So that's what I could say about engaging, what we are doing from our level to engage the media. So these journalists, they are from the print media, TV, and radio, and from Francophone and English speaking regions.
Okay, thank you, Leon. And actually, that's a great activity for the SIC, but also moving into the conference. So, colleagues, if we could also utilize and have some stories to the journalists, and we take our stories back at home. Look at asked us, so what after the conference? What will happen with all that will be at the conference? I think one of the responsibilities for the CTCA is to ensure that dissemination of the recommendations or resolutions for the conference is done on the continent, but also to highlight some of those key activities and the impact on the continent. Yes, back again to the floor. You can either use the chat or you can unmute and ask your question or make your comment. Hello. Hey, colleague.
Hello. Yeah, this is Leon again. Just Kellen.
Yes, please. Go ahead, Leon.
Yes, I think I just want to inform colleagues here that ADCA is also we are also having participating in a symposium on that's 8th of March at 11. So people can join us. Just check on the calendar, and then you can also join us. So this is a kind of invitation.
Thank you, Leon. I'm going to ask Dr. Flavia to give us your concluding remarks, if you don't have questions or comments from colleagues, in the next 2 minutes, and then we have Dr. Benaya and Dr. Mark, 2 minutes, then we can wind up.
Thank you very much, Kellen. I think one of the things that has become quite integral in the discussion, and which will become quite important, are 2 areas which are of key importance globally and also in Africa. The one is around tobacco interference, particularly now with the advent of the foundation. And so I think tobacco control colleagues will have to have, a very a strong voice that comes out quite clearly in terms of condemning that. In South Africa, for instance, we have, the tobacco industry being quite sophisticated in targeting some of our top research, our top scientists, and our top health advocates. The other one is around finding a space and a key articulation around the science, and I think this, interests very much colleagues like Mark around the issues of harm reduction, because we have not had a clear voice. I think this is something that will be quite key. I otherwise then I'm looking very much forward to welcoming you all in Cape Town. And incidentally, I do want to make a little plug and say that in South Africa, we are celebrating the centenary of Nelson Mandela. So it comes at a very special time in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Flavia. Can we have Dr. Benaya?
Thank you. So, Mike, what I would say is that we are witnessing a huge opportunity here, especially in the African context. At the moment, there are only 2 regions of the world, the Eastern Mediterranean and the African region, where there is continuing increase in tobacco use. No other region is showing an increase. It's either stable or showing a decline. Now, all our efforts notwithstanding, what we are going to see is, because the maximum population growth expected is in Africa in the next 2 decades, I see a huge business interest of tobacco industry in Africa. Tobacco use has already started to reach global numbers in at least 4 or 5 African countries. So it's not that Africa is anywhere different. It's already reaching global numbers. So the epidemic is already there. How do you ensure it's reversed now, so that we do not have a burden of NCDs in 30 years or 40 years down the line? Otherwise, the health system will not be able to stand it, and all of these growth discussion and development, which we keep hearing from different political leadership, will not be fully gained or achieved if this happens. I will stop here. Tobacco control opportunity must leverage from this World Conference and bring it to the top level debate in different governments.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Benaya. I totally agree with both of you. Can we have Dr. Mark?
Hello. So this was a great discussion. I just wanted to mention a couple of points that I think were especially helpful that came up. One was, I think, in discussing the program, someone had noted that there will be a session on TB and tobacco, which I think is an important area to look at, because I think to the extent that we can link tobacco control to larger global health efforts, that will certainly be an advantage, especially in Africa, where there is already some infrastructure around global health priorities like TB and HIV. Secondly, of course, the issue of harm reduction is also important issue, and I think that's an area we're still sort of struggling with at NCI, trying to support research that will help us to figure out how to address some of the new products we're seeing on the market and the claims that are being made about them. And then third, I think the point about the importance of thinking about sustainability of this effort after the conference, I think, is critical too. And maybe the conference hopefully will be an opportunity for some of us to think about how do we continue the momentum after the conference is over and continue to build on the work that's been done to prepare for it. And I think as Vinayak just pointed out, Africa has potentially a great risk in terms of increasing potential for increased tobacco use if nothing is done. But I think also we have the greatest opportunity to prevent the kind of epidemic on the scale that we've seen in some other parts of the world already. So hopefully that's an encouraging message too. So anyway, yeah, look forward to seeing you all at the conference.
Okay, thank you so much, Mark. I want to thank my speakers, Dr. Vinayak, Dr. Flavia, and Mark. And I want to throw it back for another minute. Does anybody have anything burning in just 1 minute before we close? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hello? Yes. Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Okay. Yes, please.
Yeah, it's me again. I see there are two different sessions for the journalists. And I was wondering how the two can be merged so that, to have maximum benefit from each other, if that is possible, at some point during the conference.
Okay. Thank you, Lutgard. Colleagues, I want to thank you so much for joining the webinar. Dr. Mark has summarized the key issues that have come out of this webinar. Critical to mention is let's look at the theme and the use and see what is our role beyond this conference, but also endeavor to participate and support the youth. We've mentioned the continent and the epidemic and the prevalence. We've mentioned the sustainability. They've given us examples of good or what we call must attend sessions and workshops. And of course, not forgetting that we are now merging the science and making sure we have the politicians and the policymakers so that we don't speak to the same group of people, but also have a new breed into the conference. And having said that, I want to thank again my speakers and those of you who have joined the webinar today. And I want to welcome you to Cape Town on behalf of the local organizing committee. That slide summarizes the local organizing committee. That is the Department of Health, CTCA, Makerere University Public Health Association of South Africa, the University of Cape Town, the Cape Town and Western Cape Convention Bureau, and of course in partnership with the Secretariat. Thank you so much, and see you in Cape Town in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Kellen.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. See you in Cape Town.